You know this man. He has an opinion on everything. Politics, sports, other people's relationships, how someone should train, how someone should eat, what's wrong with society, what's wrong with you. He debates constantly, argues relentlessly, cannot let a disagreement go without having the last word. And if you challenge him, even calmly, even reasonably, he doesn't consider it. He doubles down, gets louder, gets more aggressive. Because winning the argument isn't the point. Being seen as right is the point. Here's what most people miss about that man. He is not confident, he is not intelligent, he is not someone who has figured something out. He is someone who has not. The loud opinion is not a sign of strength. It is a symptom of insecurity so deep that it requires constant external confirmation just to feel okay. Today, I'm breaking down exactly why weak men need loud opinions and what the alternative looks like. Smash like, subscribe for more Sigma mindset content, and let's get into it. Let's establish something important first. Having opinions is not the problem. Having strong views, clear values, and the willingness to defend them when it genuinely matters, that is not weakness, that is character. The problem is something different. It is the need to share every opinion. The compulsion to be heard on every topic. The inability to sit with a disagreement without resolving it in your favor. The identity built entirely around being the person who knows. That pattern, the constant performance of certainty, is not intelligence. It is ego armor. And ego armor exists for one reason: to protect something underneath that feels fragile. The man who is genuinely secure in himself does not need the room to agree with him. He can hold his view quietly, state it once if relevant, let others disagree, and move on completely unbothered. Because his sense of self does not depend on being right. That is the difference, and it is everything. Truth one, the need to be right is the need for validation, dressed up as confidence. Think about what actually happens when someone disagrees with you. For most men, especially men who have built their identity around their opinions, a disagreement doesn't feel like an intellectual challenge. It feels like a threat. Because the opinion isn't just an idea they hold. It is who they are. And if the opinion is wrong, if someone successfully challenges it, then something deeper feels wrong. So they defend it, not with curiosity, not with openness, with aggression and volume. Because the goal was never to find the truth. The goal was to feel right, to be validated, to have the room confirm that they are intelligent, informed, worth listening to. That is not confidence, that is dependence. Genuine confidence doesn't require agreement. The secure man can say, "That's an interesting point," and actually mean it. He can change his mind without it feeling like a defeat. He can sit in a room where nobody agrees with him and feel completely fine. Because his value is not stored in his opinions. It is stored in who he is, and who he is does not change based on whether someone agreed with him today. Truth two, constant debate, is a way of avoiding the work. Here is something worth sitting with. The men who talk the most about self-improvement, who debate endlessly about the best diet, the best training method, the best philosophy, the right way to live, are very often not the men who are doing the most. Talking about what you believe is easier than living it. Debating strategy is easier than executing one. Sharing opinions online is easier than building something offline that makes your opinion irrelevant because the results speak for themselves. The man who is genuinely locked in, who is training, building, creating, growing, does not have the time or the need to win internet arguments. He is too busy. And here's the deeper truth. The compulsion to constantly share and debate often functions as a substitute for action. It creates the feeling of doing something, the dopamine hit of engagement, the sense of being productive, without requiring the actual discomfort of building anything real. It is noise mistaken for progress. The man who goes quiet and gets to work will always outbuild the man who stays loud and gets to talking. Truth 3, loudness signals that you need to be heard because you doubt you're worth listening to. This is the uncomfortable psychology underneath it all. The man who constantly volunteers opinions, who steers every conversation toward his views, who cannot let a topic pass without inserting himself, is not a man overflowing with knowledge he needs to share. He is a man who is not sure he matters and is trying to matter through volume. The subconscious logic is, if I say enough, if I'm interesting enough, if I'm right enough, then I am worth something. That is not arrogance, that is a disguised form of low self-worth. Because the man who genuinely knows his worth does not need to prove it in every conversation. He speaks when he has something worth saying. He listens more than he talks. He lets silence exist without needing to fill it with his voice. And paradoxically, that restraint makes people lean in when he does speak. Because rare things carry weight. The man who speaks constantly trains people to tune him out. The man who speaks deliberately trains people to pay attention. Volume is not authority. Restraint is. Truth 4, the smartest men in the room are almost never the loudest. Look at the people you have genuinely learned the most from in your life. Not the loudest voice in the group chat. Not the man who dominates every conversation. Not the person who argues every point into the ground. Almost always, it's someone quieter. Someone who listened first, who asked better questions than they gave answers, who changed your thinking not by forcing their view on you, but by offering a perspective so clear and well-considered that you couldn't ignore it. Real intelligence is characterized by one trait above all else: the awareness of how much you don't know. The more deeply a man understands something, the more clearly he sees its complexity. The more he has studied, the more he recognizes how much remains unstudied. That awareness breeds humility, not loudness. The man who is certain about everything has thought deeply about nothing. The man who holds his views loosely, who remains genuinely curious, who can say, I might be wrong about this, without it costing him anything. That man is actually thinking. And actual thinking is far more valuable and far rarer than confident noise. Truth 5, every argument you don't need to win is energy returned to you. Here is the practical side of all this. Every unnecessary debate costs you something. Time, mental energy, emotional regulation, focus. The man who engages every disagreement, who cannot scroll past a wrong opinion without correcting it, who needs to have the last word in every argument, is constantly leaking energy into battles that produce nothing. No one was ever convinced by someone who argued at them louder. No mind was ever changed by someone who refused to consider the other side. No relationship was ever deepened by the compulsive need to be right. The battles you choose not to fight do not make you weak. They make you efficient. The Sigma mindset is not about having no opinions. It is about being selective about which ones are worth spending yourself on. State your view once, clearly, calmly, then let it stand or fall on its own. You do not need to defend it into submission. You do not need the other person to agree. You do not need to win. Because your value was never in the argument. It was in the life you're building while everyone else is still arguing. Here is the truth underneath all of this. Loud opinions are a hunger signal. They signal a man who is hungry for validation, for significance, for proof that he exists and matters and is worth listening to. That hunger is human, it is understandable. but it cannot be fed from the outside. No amount of agreement, no one argument, no viral comment section will fill it. Because it is not an intellectual problem, it is an identity problem. The man who does the internal work, who builds something real, who develops genuine self-respect, who finds his worth in who he is rather than whether people agree with him. That hunger quiets, not because he stops caring about truth, but because he no longer needs truth to be a vehicle for his own validation. He can pursue it honestly, hold it lightly, share it selectively, and stay completely unbothered when the room disagrees. That is not weakness. That is the quietest, most unshakable form of strength there is. So here's what we broke down today: why weak men need loud opinions. 1. The need to be right is the need for validation dressed up as confidence. 2. Constant debate is avoidance, talking about the work instead of doing it. 3. Loudness signals that you need to be heard because you doubt you're worth listening to. 4. The smartest men in the room are almost never the loudest. 5. Every argument you don't need to win is energy returned to you. Here's your challenge this week. The next time you feel the urge to correct someone, to debate, to get the last word, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it genuinely matters or because I need to be right? If it's the second one, let it go. Say nothing, move on, put that energy into something that actually builds. Do that consistently and watch how much calmer, clearer, and more focused your life becomes. Like this video if it made you want to say less. Subscribe and turn on notifications, more of this every week. The strongest thing you can do in an argument. Walk away without needing to win it. I'll see you at the top.